hardest lesson to learn is how to be alone all over again. At first it feels impossible. The silence is too loud. The bed feels too big. Every street, every song, every little thing reminds you of what was and what no longer is. You never realize how much space someone took up in your life until they're gone. And then, suddenly, it's just you and the memories, just you and the what-ifs, just you, learning to exist in a world that feels different now. It's waking up and reaching for someone who isn't there. It's scrolling through old messages, reading them over and over, as if they might somehow change. It's looking at a name in your phone and knowing you shouldn't call. It's sitting across from an empty chair, remembering who used to sit there. It's knowing that time moves forward, even when you don't want it to. But the hardest thing in life is finding somebody you can't live without, and then learning how to live without them. You tell yourself it will get easier. Some days, it does. Other days, it feels like you're learning to breathe all over again. The world keeps spinning. People keep talking. Life keeps happening. And yet, there you are, standing still in the middle of it all, trying to understand how everything can look the same when nothing feels the same. They say healing isn't linear. They say grief comes in waves. But what they don't tell you is that some days, those waves feel like they might drown you. Some nights, the loneliness feels unbearable. Some mornings, you wake up and forget for a split second, just one split second, before reality crashes down all over again. But here's the thing. Being alone doesn't mean being lonely. At first, the silence is suffocating. But one day, it becomes peaceful. At first, the space they left behind feels empty. But one day, it feels like freedom. At first, you feel like you'll never be okay again. But one day you are. One day, you wake up and realize you didn't think about them first thing in the morning. One day, you hear your favorite song and it doesn't hurt. One day, you go to that place, the one you avoided for so long, and you don't feel like breaking down. One day, you sit alone and you are okay with it, because the truth is, you don't have to forget, you don't have to erase the past, but you do have to keep going. You've survived every worst day you thought you wouldn't, and you'll survive this too. But survival isn't just about getting through the hardest days, it's about learning to live again, because at some point, you have to stop existing in the past and start existing in the present. At some point, you have to stop measuring time by the distance between then and now. At some point, you have to stop waiting for them to come back and start showing up for yourself instead. Because being alone doesn't mean being lost. It doesn't mean you are broken. It doesn't mean you have failed. Being alone means you have space. Space to rebuild. Space to breathe. Space to figure out who you are without them. Because maybe that's the real lesson. Maybe life isn't about holding on. Maybe it's about learning to let go. Maybe it's about understanding that love is not possession and loss is not the end. Maybe it's about accepting that some people come into your life to teach you something, and sometimes their lesson is how to move on without them. At first you resist it. You fight against the loneliness. You try to fill the silence with distractions, with noise, with anything that keeps you from feeling the weight of what's missing. But eventually, you stop fighting. Eventually, you realize that healing doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, in the quiet moments, in the deep breaths, in the way you start laughing again, genuinely laughing, in the way you start making plans without thinking about whether they'd want to come too, in the way you finally look at yourself in the mirror and see someone whole, because you are whole. You always were. Even when it felt like a part of you was missing, even when it felt like you had nothing left, even when you thought you'd never feel okay again. And maybe that's the hardest lesson of all, realizing that the person you thought you couldn't live without was never the person keeping you alive. You were, you still are, and you always will be, because life doesn't end when love ends. And being alone is just the beginning of something new. But beginnings are never easy. Starting over feels overwhelming, like standing at the edge of something vast and unknown. Like stepping into a world that looks familiar, but no longer feels like home. Like learning to walk again after forgetting how to stand. And yet, step by step, you do. At first, the steps are small, getting out of bed, eating a meal alone and actually tasting it, going for a walk without checking your phone, without hoping for a message that won't come. You learn that healing isn't about rushing to feel better. It's about allowing yourself to feel at all, to sit with the sadness without drowning in it, to acknowledge the past without living in it, to grieve what was without losing yourself in the process. Because grief is not just about loss, it's about love. It's about learning how to carry something in your heart instead of in your hands. It's about realizing that missing someone doesn't mean you need them back. It just means they mattered, and they still do. But so do you. So does your future. So does everything waiting for you on the other side of this pain. And maybe, just maybe, this isn't an ending at all. Maybe it's a new chapter. Maybe it's a chance to discover parts of yourself that you forgot existed. Maybe it's a chance to fall in love again, not with someone else, but with your own life. Because love was never meant to be the thing that completes you. You were always whole. And now, for the first time in a long time, you get to learn what that means. But learning to be whole again doesn't happen overnight. Some days it still hurts. Some days you catch yourself reaching for the phone just for a second. Not because you want to call, but because for so long they were the first person you told everything to. And now you have to teach yourself that not every thought needs to be shared. Not every memory needs to be revisited. Not every empty space needs to be filled. Some things you just have to hold within yourself. Some things you just have to let be. And that's the part no one tells you. That healing isn't about forgetting. It's not about pretending you were never hurt. It's about learning to carry the past without letting it weigh you down. It's about understanding that love, even when it's lost, was never wasted. It changed you. It shaped you. And now it's time to let it go. Not because it didn't matter, not because it wasn't real, but because your life is still waiting, and you can't live it looking backward. So you start small. You wake up and open the curtains, letting the light in. You listen to music again, not just the songs that remind you of them, but the ones that remind you of yourself. You take yourself out, dinner for one, a movie alone, a walk with no destination. And at first, it feels strange, but then something shifts. One day, you realize you're not just going through the motions anymore. One day, you find yourself laughing, really laughing. One day, you catch your reflection and don't see someone who is lost. You see someone who survived. You see someone who made it through the nights they thought they wouldn't. You see someone who is still here, still standing, still learning, still growing. And maybe you're not the same person you were before. Maybe you never will be. But maybe that's the point. Because life isn't about staying the same. It's about becoming. And right now, in this moment, you are becoming someone new. Someone stronger, someone softer, someone who knows what it means to lose and what it means to keep going anyway. And that is something beautiful. And one day you wake up and realize you're okay. Not just pretending, not just surviving, but truly, deeply okay. The weight isn't as heavy. The memories don't hurt as much. The silence feels like peace, not emptiness. And you understand you never really had to learn how to be alone again. You just had to remember that you were always enough on your own, that you still are, that you always will be. And that is where healing begins.